The last break is behind us as we switch into gear for the final stretch of the series. This is CBSSports.com's NASCAR Report, and I am Amber Wilson. 17 races left in the season, just 7 to make the chase. A nice little break, but it's time for these guys to hit the track again with a vengeance. This is when every little move counts. In a moment, we'll bring in Pete Pistone to talk about all that is coming up. But first, let's give you a little refresher on where everyone stands, just in case your memory took a break this past weekend as well. Kyle Busch is still way out in front in points going into Indy this weekend at the top of the standings, and 5 drivers behind him have sat in the same spots for a few weeks leading up to the break. Dale Jr. and Jeff Burton are close enough to battle it out for the runner-up spot, with Jr. 29 points ahead. Edwards, Johnson, and Gordon are all familiar names up there, but 2 pairs of drivers have been moving all over the place. Greg Biffle and Kevin Harvick both moved up 4 spots prior to the break, while Denny Hamlin is last in the top 12 after falling 5. Casey Kane is hoping he can bounce back at the Brickyard after taking a small dive, going from 8th to 11th. Now that we've got you all caught up, we bring in our very own NASCAR expert, Pete Pistone, to the show. And Pete, I hope you enjoyed the last off weekend for the Sprint Cup Series. You'd think the drivers certainly would have by taking a little time for a vacation, but instead, many of them found themselves behind the wheel. What was that about, Pete? What were they up to?
Yeah, you give these guys a weekend off from the Sprint Cup Series, and a lot of them still find their way to a racetrack. Let's see. Matt Kenseth was in the Midwest racing late model stock cars. He won a race on Tuesday night a week ago at Slinger Superspeedway, a little track north of Milwaukee, where he cut his teeth. And then he and Kyle Busch actually raced in the ASA late model race at the Iowa Speedway over the weekend. A lot of drivers were down at Gateway International Raceway in the Nationwide Series race, including Carl Edwards, who won that race on Saturday night, and Kevin Harvick wound up in New England at the Oxford Speedway in Oxford, Maine. The race that was rain delayed from Sunday to Monday, Harvick stuck around and wound up winning that 250-lap race. So even though you give these guys an off weekend on the schedule, and there's only 3 of them all year, a lot of them are going to still find their way behind the wheel before it's all said and done.
And there was more off-track news as well, with Ryan Newman's departure from Penske Racing made official. Does that pave the way for an announcement that he'll join Tony Stewart's new team in 2009?
Well, it does look like he's going to wind up with the Stewart-Haas Racing Team. We thought maybe we'd get an official announcement this weekend when we're in Indianapolis for the Brickyard, but it doesn't appear that's going to happen. We are going to find out that Tony Stewart does have a sponsorship in place for his team, and he's going to run the number 14. As for Ryan Newman, I expect him to wind up there, although Newman told us after he made the official announcement that he was leaving Penske Racing, he had about 5 or 6 other offers come in. So maybe he's still contemplating, but I think it'll be a slam dunk before the summer is out that we'll see Tony Stewart and Ryan Newman as teammates at the new Stewart-Haas Racing Team in 2009.
All right, Pete, back on the track this week. We pick things back up this weekend in Indianapolis, and the race to make the chase is down to only 7 races to go, as I mentioned before. Tell us about the drivers that are on the hot seat in terms of their playoff chances.
Well, there's 7 races to go to make the chase, and Denny Hamlin's on the bubble going into Indianapolis this week. He's in the 12th spot, but if you go up to maybe 6th spot, Jeff Gordon is in that position. I don't think any driver in the top 12, maybe 6th and up, can rest. I think if you stumble, you're going to have some trouble. So it's not just the guys on the outside looking in, like Clint Boyer and David Reagan and Martin Truex Jr. and Ryan Newman. I think some of the guys in the top 12, Kevin Harvick, they need to really watch themselves here, Amber, because over the next 7 weeks, some bad luck, crashes, or anything else that happens to them, we've seen how quickly you can tumble out of that top 12. So these next 7 races, till we get to Richmond in September to finally solidify the chase field, are going to be pretty interesting.
Okay, Pete, Indianapolis is always a special race, and Sunday's Allstate 400 at the Brickyard is one of the most highly anticipated stops of the year. What can we expect out there?
Yeah, the Brickyard has really turned into the second biggest race behind Daytona, and if you ask most of the drivers in the garage area, they would probably pretty much all agree with that. Going into this place, the historic nature of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is something that just kind of leaps out at everyone, so they all want to win this race, but we don't really know what to expect. This is the first time the new Sprint Cup car has run there. I guess you have to go to Pocono a few weeks ago, a track pretty similar to Indianapolis, being that it's such a flat track, and use those notes coming into this weekend's race. But I don't think you can go by anybody else's past performance at Indianapolis and give them an advantage. Tony Stewart, who's won 2 of the last 3 years there, I think maybe would be someone to put in the favorite list, but I guess Casey Kane would have to go on that list if you look at Pocono where he won. So should be pretty interesting. It's always an event. It's the biggest crowd of the year, probably about 250,000 people there on Sunday, and it's always a lot of fun to go to the Brickyard, and I'm looking forward to going down there this weekend.
Okay, Pete, thanks as always. We look forward to hearing from you this weekend from Indy. And don't you forget to come back next week when we take a look at Pocono. But for now, if you missed anything here today, stop, refresh, and rewatch. For Pete Pistone, I'm Amber Wilson.